In 2023, Doctor Who had its 60th anniversary, and there are several ways that the show celebrated its diamond year. Not only was there 3 specials that saw the return of fan favourites David Tennant and Catherine Tate with writer Russell T Davies, but there was also the audio company Big Finish doing a series of audio dramas called Once and Future that featured a full cast of well-known actors within the show. Whilst that series was very accessible and felt very celebratory, Big Finish's first anniversary celebration back in 2003 was a lot more experimental, with the reception being certainly controversial amongst fans, as both the 50th release within the monthly range and also the 40th anniversary of Doctor Who, Zagreus is probably one of Big Finish's most well-known audios, and with its reception, one of its most talked about too. But what do I think of it? Well, let me tell you now, as you sit comfortably. Hello folks, this is Time Agent MW, logging on to a new video. Whilst this isn't a new episode of the Chillaxing and Chit-Chatting podcast, I am still recording this video in the style of the podcast so that I can provide you with a new review of Big Finish audio, and this one is particularly special. As mentioned before, Zagreus is Big Finish's audio that celebrated 40 years of Doctor Who, and because the show was not on television at this point, this was treated, I imagine, as the official anniversary of the show. However, this isn't just an audio that acts to celebrate 40 years of Doctor Who, but be a continuation of an ongoing story, so I'll provide a bit of historical context. Back in 1999, when Big Finish first got the license by the BBC, they started doing the monthly adventures first, with one story released each month focusing on several different Doctors. Originally, they began with the 5th, 6th, and 7th Doctors, until they expanded in 2001 with the 8th Doctor. The latest incarnation up to that point, with Paul McGann having played the role only once in the TV movie back in 1996. However, with him returning to the role through Big Finish, McGann was able to give fans an opportunity to experience a full continuation of this incarnation, with the man himself playing the role again. Unlike the novels that were written at the time, where it was just written and you didn't hear his voice or see McGann play the role again. During his run with the monthly range, he travelled first with companion Charlotte Pollard, played by India Fisher. She has a face and name you may not recognise, but you have probably heard of her voice if you watch the UK version of MasterChef, as she's the narrator for that show. The character she plays, called mostly Charlie, is an Edwardian adventuress who gets saved by the Doctor on the R101, a blimp that crashed that also killed most of the people on board. Charlie was meant to be one of the many victims of the crash, but with a sci-fi twist on this real piece of history, she survives and is saved by the Doctor. This creates the first major story arc for the 8th Doctor on Big Finish, which involves the web of time, and that web being changed because of Charlie still living and being alive, creating the possible end of the universe. This arc would culminate in the audio known as Neverland, the final audio in the second run of audios with 8 and Charlie. The audio is one that I remember enjoying, and it works as an emotional, epic story for both 8 and Charlie, with the title being a great hint to a famous story being used for this audio. But in order to talk about the premise about Zagreus, I'll have to spoil the ending for Neverland, so if you've not listened to that audio yet, I'd recommend stopping the video here and listening to that audio first. Now let's talk about how Zagreus begins. Zagreus begins with a recap of Neverland, which did help me in getting to know about anything I forgot. The recap is also there to provide a prologue for Zagreus, with the prologue being the Doctor and Charlie waking up after saving the universe, with the belief that the anti-time matter was gone. However, it's revealed that the Doctor has gone completely out of character, much to Charlie's shock, and I imagine to the listeners of Neverland. He proclaims to be Zagreus, first revealed in previous 8 and Charlie audios as an old Gallifreyan nursery rhyme. Now Charlie has to figure out exactly what happened to the Doctor, what Zagreus is battling with the persona of the Doctor.
You're scaring me now. Stop it, Doctor, please.
Doctor, behold the last vestiges of the most awesome power ever imagined. Yes. How much better if I should take my title from a work of imagination, a creature willed to power by the undying anger of an unreal race.
Doctor, I haven't got the faintest idea what you're on about, but I really think you need help, so if you'll just let me... Ow! Doctor! Doctor, what's wrong with you?
I told you, girl, I am not the doctor. I am become he who sits inside your head, he who lives among the dead, he who sees you in your bed and eats you when you're sleeping. I am become Zagreus!
That's the basic plot, and that's as basic as I'll give for it. However, it's a lot more bonkers than just the little description that I've just given. In fact, it's a bit more descriptive than what Big Finish gives on the website. I will say, though, that the craziness of the plot isn't just crazy for the sake of being crazy. The audio does link, much like Neverland, to a classic literature story, and it's very clear what story it is. I also say that because of what I've heard from other fans of what this story was like, it probably did help me in making the audio not feel as insane to me compared to other fans who dived straight into it. One of the main reasons as to why some fans took a dislike to the story is because of a bit of false advertising. It's mainly due to the cover art, which makes the story look like a multi-Doctor story, and some fans might listen to this story as their first one with the Eighth Doctor, not knowing it's meant to be both the wrap-up of an ongoing storyline while setting up a future storyline for the next Eighth Doctor audios. However, as for myself, who had listened to the Eighth Doctor audios in the past, I found myself overall loving most of Zagreus, and personally I had a really great time with the audio. One reason I enjoyed it was that I was able to take my time with the audio, as I was decided to listen to each of the 3 parts of the story by listening to 1 part per day. It made it easier to digest the story's large length at being nearly about 4 hours, and it helped heavily with my opinion of this audio being so positive. Despite the length, Zagreus kept me constantly engaged thanks to the various different places both Charlie and the Doctor enter. It just allows for the imagination to run completely wild, and with this only being on audio, there's no budget to come up with really in the visual department, so you can imagine the most creative visuals that probably couldn't be achieved in the official show. The length is not just key for the main story of Zagreus, but it's also there to conclude an ongoing storyline with the Eighth Doctor and Charlie audios. The arc is not just there to conclude that arc, but it's also to set up a future arc that's going to occur in the equivalent of the 3rd season of audios with the Eighth Doctor and Charlie. Having not listened to 8 and Charlie in several months with a full audio, it was definitely great listening to them again, and it reminded me of what makes these two click together so well. Zagreus allows for this duo's relationship to be challenged with how there's often a physical and psychological distance between these two friends, and it leads to the most powerful and emotional moments in the story. It means that the story is not just emotional for Charlie, but it's psychologically emotional for the Eighth Doctor as well, because he's not just being changed into someone that's scaring his friend, but the TARDIS gets used to around in the story in a very interesting way, which I won't spoil just yet. And along with him battling himself as the Doctor, as the persona of Zagreus, it helps to create one of my favorite performances from McGann, who's able to get a much more psychological performance as the Doctor, which you don't see very often, and it makes it all the more special when you see it, or rather listen to it.
Enough sitting, Doctor. We need to find Charlie. If I move away from my safety net of glowiness, there'll only be one of me again, and I've an unpleasant idea. It will be you in charge. Up here, I am Zagreus, the one who sets all time a-weeping. Yes, well, that's rather the point, isn't it? You're not setting anything a-weeping, are you? My own bewaffled subconsciousness has conjured you up so we can have a little tete-a-tete, but only whilst I'm here. Zagreus doesn't exist. But that's just the delight of it, Doctor. I do now. By destroying the power of the anti-time casket, by absorbing it into yourself and your craft, you have brought me into reality. And whilst your ship helped you earlier, I can feel its defenses cracking. And the parts of me that are inside every wall, every flaw, every atom of every particle grow stronger and more dominant, just as they are in you. We will be rid of you. How? I am unique. I'm alien. I don't conform to your laws, your physics. And with your help, Doctor, I'm going to alter the state of your universe. Make it suit me. Won't that rather result in the destruction of everything else? That's rather the point.
All the cast are terrific, though, which includes old cast members from Doctor Who returning in interesting and surprising ways, which I won't give away. Of course, this includes India Fisher as Charlie, being that the story revolves around mostly her, with her being the listener in similar to the listener in figuring out what exactly is happening. And as well as that, the writing gives her an opportunity to have the most emotional moments in the story, and India really rises to the occasion fantastically. Whilst I have said that the story doesn't feel as strange as it was built up to be, I still found it wild what occurs in the story. That I do think that it helps, though, that with the length and keeping me engaged, that it rarely has a dull moment when you're listening to it. Even with the range of ideas at display, the story still has moments, though, that makes this feel like an anniversary. One example, which I won't spoil, which doesn't spoil the story, is that different versions of the Doctor Who theme get used throughout both the opening and closing of each part. So I will say that Zagreus does feel fitting as the anniversary of the wilderness years, specifically of Doctor Who. It's because of how experimental it matches well with how it came at a time when the show was no longer on the telly, and expanded media was being used to continue the show, with most of the writers now being fans who took the franchise into bold new territory, such as tackling topics not suitable for the show when it would have been broadcast. So the experimentation within Zagreus feels fitting for the anniversary story for the wilderness years, celebrating that particular period of Doctor Who when it wasn't on the air. That's as far as I'll go into reviewing Zagreus without going into spoilers. So if you've yet to listen to this story, I'd recommend stopping this video and checking out the audio for yourself. For everyone else, though, I'll provide the full details. I think two surprises that really stood out for me after listening to it was firstly the use of Jon Pertwee, because although I did know that he would appear in the story, he was listed on the cast, I was surprised that the audio being used is some that I've never heard before. I wondered when this audio originally came because Pertwee passed away in 1996, so I doubted that they were able to record something for him for this story specifically. I mean, even then, Big Finish didn't have the license for Doctor Who until 1999. So the one issue with However, I found out, I did some research, and it turns out that the audio is from a fan film that is according to a review of this audio. So a review of this audio, Zagreus did say that apparently this was a fan film. So they took a fan film and they put the audio of that into this particular story. And whilst that's kind of cool, there is one issue I do have with using Jon Pertwee, and it's because I can't really hear what he's saying often. And it seems cool at first, but then it needs to either be improved or changed by using maybe a different actor. Maybe today it would have probably been used with an impressionist or a different doctor played by an actor that's still alive. So I think that perhaps could have made it a lot better in terms of using Jon Pertwee, or rather the third Doctor. Another surprise, I would say, was that listening to Romana meet Leela for the first time, and this audio being the setup to a spin-off audio from Big Finish called Gallifrey. It's a series I'm familiar with its name, and I own the first episode of the series, and I've listened to that many years ago. I bought the CD, I remember, of Gallifrey back in the Doctor Who experience when it was open still. It was like a couple months before it closed. But I had no idea that Zagreus sees the two leading ladies of that series meet for the very first time. It was pretty cool, and I do think that both characters were especially great during the ending when Leela talks to Charlie and Romana then talks to the Doctor. I've not seen much of Leela, and I haven't seen any story fully with Romana. So I'm not familiar with these characters as much as other companions or characters from Doctor Who, but I did enjoy listening to these two former companions that were also traveling with the same Doctor, despite that they have two different personalities. I also think it's fitting to see Romana in this story as well because she was in Neverland. And going back to her talking to the Doctor, the scene that she is talking to the Doctor is done really well, thanks to the blend of great writing by writers Gary Russell and Alan Barnes and the performance of Paul McGann. With this writing, we get the Doctor showing his anger and reason for why he would leave Gallifrey in the first place, with how every hero he looked up to ended up as a corrupt, insane, or desperate for complete power and control, and McGann completely sells the anger, and it results in one of his standout moments as the Eighth Doctor.
If that's what you want.
It's my choice. My last request in this universe.
You've decided then.
Don't say you doubted me.
I knew you'd do the right thing.
Oh, good old Doctor, good fellow, good man. Yes, I'll do the right thing. No need to call out the heavy mob.
If you should ever try to return...
I won't.
If you should ever try...
I will not. Why would I want to return here when all my heroes are so damn disappointing? Omega, a madman sold out by his peers. Morbius, Time Lord of the first rank, betrays his heritage. Barusa, my old friend, teacher and mentor. All he wants is immortality. And Rassilon. Oh, Rassilon, the father of our whole society, a bigoted despot so consumed by love for his own self-image that he sentences the future to death. Who's next? You, Madam President? Is that what a sniff of power on your pathetic planet does? Enjoy your corruption, Romana. I don't want to see or hear anything of Gallifrey ever again.
You're too harsh, Doctor.
Who am I? Once the Time Lords exiled me. Now I exile myself.
On the flip side, we have India Fisher as Charlie, and probably her standout moment would have to be the moment where she kills the Doctor, as she absolutely shows her acting chops with how Charlie breaks down, and it makes you believe that these two are the best of friends who deeply love each other, and it's with that love that involves the TARDIS. I mentioned previously in the video that the interesting role the TARDIS plays in Zagreus, and I think the reason I find it so fascinating is that it not only takes the form of the Brigadier, who's actually played by Nicholas Courtney, but you get to listen to the ship speak to the Doctor for the first time, and seeing the TARDIS speak to the Doctor in the very first time results in a really good exchange between each other, where the TARDIS makes a fair point as to why they would be against the Doctor. Despite being best friends with Charlie, the TARDIS points out that the Doctor had just met Charlie through the ship's eyes, through the TARDIS's eyes, and they've seen so many companions come and go. And yet the Doctor would sacrifice both themselves and the TARDIS for Charlie's life. It does make sense when the ship points it out, and you understand why they would be convinced by Rassilon to join him. Nicholas Courtney also is really good in the story as the TARDIS.
I was your friend, Doctor. Your TARDIS. Your friendship. How many adventures did we share? How many billions of miles did we travel together? How long was it before you betrayed me?
I never betrayed you.
Never betrayed? What did you think you were doing when you piloted me around an exploding time station? Did you ask my permission? Did you stop for one moment, 1 millisecond, to consider me? When you laid your life down for the girl, you laid mine down, too. Couldn't kill her, though, could you? Couldn't sacrifice the blessed Charlotte. But me, your oldest, most steadfast friend, that's a different matter. Never mind, dear old TARDIS. Had a good innings, didn't we, old girl? Old thing. Can you imagine what it felt like when the time station detonated inside me? When those fires of anti-time raged through my heart? It hurt. But that was nothing. Nothing to knowing you'd abandoned me. Cast aside my life in favor of some girl, some stupid, silly girl who ought never to have lived in the first place.
Speaking of Rassilon, he's in this story and played really well by Don Warrington. He works as an antagonist who helps to not only set up the Divergent universe story arc, but the Divergent also showcases his character. Despite being all-powerful, he's presented here as a pathetic individual who's scared of the Divergent and has wanted to hide away this piece of history from him. The way the history is explored also with Charlie through 3 sections, which also involves Peter Davison, Colin Baker, and Sylvester McCoy, is not only unique because they're using previous actors who have played the Doctor that are being used, but we get a bit more expansion as to the world of Gallifrey, and it's not just trying to open up too much of the past as well. So there's still a bit of hidden mystery surrounding it as well. And as I mentioned, using 3 previous actors who played the Doctor in interesting ways, which I'm going to get into later, is really fascinating as well with the way they're being used. The 3 sections also part of the Great Parallel and use the classic story Alice in Wonderland, and they work as a great parallel to that classic story, and it's used more than, say, Peter Pan being used in Neverland. The story, however, does work, especially with not just how crazy the story gets, but also the people Charlie meets is sometimes with her and sometimes against her, and it's similar to how many of the figures of Wonderland are very unpredictable to Alice. So Charlie very much is kind of Alice entering the rabbit hole. I will say, though, that when those 3 actors appear near the end of Zagreus as 5, 6, and 7, it is very fun and great to listen to them as their main roles and interact with the 8th Doctor.
Bravo! Bravo, my friend!
Very good.
Not bad, I suppose. A little overwrought, perhaps. It's a better exit than I ever had. A bang on the head, I ask you.
Even that's more dignified than what I endured. Didn't see that one coming, did I?
Where am I? Oh, I see. That was it then.
That's your lot, mate. The final curtain. Cry, author, author, all you want. No one's coming back on stage.
House lights up, exit audience, the end.
And I very much fear the moment's not been prepared for.
Whatever will the critics say? Melodramatic?
Overlong.
A derivative too? Still, the leading lady saved the show.
Didn't she just? Don't think any of mine would have done the same.
What, not even Perry?
Well,
Not even Mel?
Oh, she tried it with carrot juice. Nearly succeeded, too.
So what happens now?
Oh, you'll regenerate. You'll see this blaze of light comet across the medulla oblongata.
A new star.
Any second now.
Although there is a good reason they aren't playing as their respected Doctors for the majority. The reason is through the behind-the-scenes audio, where co-writer Gary Russell explains that the gimmick of multi-Doctor stories have been used too many times to be refreshing, and the 50th anniversary, I think, is an exception because we never had an anniversary story in the revival. However, I do agree that the anniversary story shouldn't always rely on having different Doctors meet together, and Gary Russell explains it quite well in the behind-the-scenes audio.
I said right from the word go, if we're going to do a multi-Doctor story, it can't be a multi-Doctor story like the 3 Doctors or the 5 Doctors or the 2 Doctors, because that's been done to death. Let's get all the Doctors together, let's throw a potload of companions in and have them all romping around and having a big anniversary adventure, which was great in 1973 and equally great in 1983. In 2003, that's not quite so great. I think Doctor Who fandom, and I think the stories are more sophisticated is the wrong word, but I think we've all moved on a bit. So I wanted to do something that celebrated who the actors are rather than celebrated who the Doctors and that are. And so I had to find a story that can encapsulate doing effectively a multi-Doctor story, but with a quite different twist.
What's interesting, though, is that a previous anniversary story, The 5 Doctors, is used in this story when Charlie is transported with the characters that Peter Davison, Colin Baker, and Sylvester McCoy are playing. They're transported to the Death Zone, and the music of that story, The 5 Doctors, is even used as the cliffhanger.
Well, are these gentlemen not worthy of introduction?
Idiot and idiot meet super ego.
Lord Tepesh, Provost of the Arcalian Chapter Houses. A fellow pilgrim in this realm of despair.
We're on Gallifrey.
You doubt me? Take my hand, you'll see.
if I must.
I confess I've never been here before. Well, no one has and lived to tell the tale, but I knew.
Why? What did you see?
That.
A tower.
The tower. This is what we poets term the death zone, and that is the dark tower of none other than foul Rassilon himself.
Gary Russell also mentions in the behind the scenes that there's an opportunity for past actors to deliver great performances because of the enthusiasm of them playing a different role that's different, to what they originally played on screen.
It was nice being able to give people, to be able to write stuff for these people that we knew they would have fun doing, that they would want to do. I think often with Doctors and Companions, they're slightly hidebound by always having to be Nissa, always having to be the Sixth Doctor, always having to be Erimem, whatever. And therefore, to give them something that is written more to their strengths has been a bit of fun. And I think they've all responded really nicely to that and really kind of enjoyed it.
And a couple of them have got things to do which are way out of left field. Showing sides themselves they've never shown before, which is cool.
And not just the companions. I mean, we've done it with all 4 Doctors as well. Paul's got a chance to do something different. Colin, Sylvester, Peter, they've all got a chance to... Stretch is probably going too far, but they've got a chance to flex their acting muscles and just do something a bit different.
On a side note, I didn't realise, though, that Elizabeth Sladen was in this audio. She played Miss Lime, so that was a funny surprise when I saw her name listed on the cast, and I'll have to listen to the story again to catch her again, because I had no idea she was in this story. Whilst Davison, Baker, and McCoy are playing mostly different roles to their Doctors, I do like that the roles they are playing are similar to their respected Doctors, such as Davison as a reverend who's curious but also playing the role of someone who's meant to be peaceful. Baker plays a sinister vampire, and then McCoy plays an eccentric Walt Disney-like figure. The behind the scenes, if you're wondering, came for free, and it's not on the Zagreus audio, but instead it was a bonus for another 8th Doctor and Charlie audio that's available for free to download on the Big Finish website. The audio is called Living a Legend. I've not gotten too much to say about this audio, not because it's bad or forgettable, but more so because it's a very short story, clocking in at just over 21 minutes. Essentially, it's just the Doctor and Charlie landing in Italy 1982 and stopping an alien invasion. It's a fun comedic story that did make me laugh, and it allows for a short but pretty enjoyable adventure before the 8th Doctor adventures with Charlie continue properly as they head towards the Divergent universe.
Come away carefully. This is no time to start snapping any loud twigs.
There only seem to be 2 of them at least, but they are rather large.
Only 2 now, but if they get that transdimensional portal up and running, this planet will be up to its eyeballs in Threllips. And that won't be a pretty sight, Charlie, believe me.
Threllips?
They're an aggressive, expansionist race. There's nothing they like better than coming across a nice, unsuspecting planet and moving in when nobody's looking.
So I take it they're not here for the party, then?
A Threllip would know what a party was if one bit him on the elbow. They're a joyless bunch. Duller than a turtle marathon. Highly advanced on a technological level, though they've even had dealings with the Time Lords.
So how do we stop them switching on this portal thing? Doctor? Oh, I know. I could sneak around behind them, then show myself, hey, you, what are you doing on my planet? I'll call the polizia, that sort of thing. They're big, but I bet they're slow. While they're off chasing me, you could sneak into the clearing and blow up the portal.
Not bad, but I see a problem.
What?
Did you notice those devices attached to their belts, the ones that resembled guns?
Yes, what are they?
Guns. And a Threllip blaster could level most of this woodland with a single burst. I know you can move quickly, Charlie, but trying to outrun a radium-charged fireball is just as hard as it looks.
Oh. Any other ideas, then?
Great expectations.
You're going to quote Dickens to them. I really think my plan's better, Doctor.
No, I'm onto something. No idea what, but I'm definitely onto something. Great expectations. Come on, let's get back to the TARDIS.
I already praised the audio's conclusion with 8 talking with Romana. Another aspect I love is that there's a mention of various people the Doctor looked up to that he no longer does. That includes the villain of the Five Doctors, Barusa, another callback to that anniversary story. Another bit of the ending I love is the Doctor looking at the bookshelf on the TARDIS. It's a nice little callback to the first 8 Doctor audio scene in his first audio story, Storm Warning, where he does exactly the same thing.
Now then, let's put Mr. Carroll back on the shelf, shall we? Camus, Capek, Capote, the I Spy Book of British Birds. But these shelves aren't ordered at all. You Only Live Twice. Can You Forgive Her? The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. Ah, this old thing again. Yes, same preface. When was it I last picked you up? And wasn't I interrupted? I can't remember. Anyway, in the summer of 1816, we visited Switzerland and became the neighbors. TARDIS manual. Not here, are you? I really must sort through these shelves properly some century soon. Oh! Agatha Christie, The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. First printing, signed, with the last page missing. Now I'll never know who done it. Now, let's see. War and Peace, The I Spy Book of British Birds, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. Just look at the binding on this one. Published 1831 and in mint condition, too. Now, isn't this the edition with the preface all about that time when... Yes, it is. In the summer of 1816, we visited Switzerland and became the neighbours of Lord Byron. At first, we spent pleasant hours on the lake or wandering on its shores, but it proved a wet, ungenial summer, and incessant rain confined us for days to the house. Some volumes of ghost stories fell into our hands. We will each write a ghost story, said Byron. There were 4 of us. Well, that's wrong for a start. I busied myself to think of a story, one which would speak to the mysterious fears of our nature, to curdle the blood and quicken the beatings of the heart. Oh, Mary, Mary, if only you could have told the real story.
It's a great callback to that audio, which works really well considering Storm Warning was written by Zagreus co-writer Alan Barnes, and it was also directed and co-produced by Gary Russell, who would co-write with Alan Barnes Zagreus. It definitely gives the impression to me that Zagreus is the conclusion of that first run of 8 Doctor audios. Aside from that ending, the last thing I want to mention is the setup of the Diversion arc. It does seem exciting, especially with how experimental this arc could be, with how time doesn't exist at all, and the Doctor is dealing with the guilt that he's still Zagreus and not fully recovered. I do also like how the Divergent are presented as this powerful, scary threat, especially with how it even scares Rassilon. But not too much detail has been revealed, and that's good too, because the storyline is only setting up and beginning here. Whilst I'm not sure on the reception of each upcoming story in the Diversion arc, I do know that the next story, the next audio in from the 8th Doctor's Scherzo, is critically acclaimed by most fans as one of the best audios from the 8th Doctor, and just one of the best audios from Big Finish in general. And it's mainly thanks to the writer of that being Robert Sherman, who also wrote my current favourite 8th Doctor audio, The Chimes of Midnight. Although Scherzo is said to be experimental and different to what Chimes was, so I'm looking forward to seeing Rob tackle a different type of story. And at the time of writing this video, I've yet to have listened to it, but I definitely will do at some point. Overall, though, whilst Chimes is still my favourite 8th Doctor audio, I still consider Zagreus a good second place for my favourite stories with this Doctor. It's the second time I've really loved an 8th Doctor audio, and appreciate how unique and experimental of an audio it is to celebrate the show's 40th anniversary, and I doubt we'll get another anniversary story like it for the show, so I'll definitely cherish it. But I think that's all I've got to say about this audio. Thank you very much for watching or listening to the video. Be sure to maybe like, comment, or maybe even subscribe for more videos that'll be coming up. I'll try and upload more videos, and I'll be sure to go ahead and start writing up some more audio reviews, and also providing you with more episodes of the Chillaxing and Chill Chit Chatting podcast. But for now, this is me, Time Agent MW, signing out.